All right, welcome back to a very special episode of Cosmic Road, where we are joined once again by the one and only Steve Bassett. Welcome back to the show, Steve.
Good to be with you, my man.
What times? We've got multiple UFO hearings. We've got the big thing that just happened with Louis Elizondo and Eric Davis from the UAP Disclosure Fund in Congress, with multiple members of Congress sitting in. Eric Davis talking about various races of beings, reptilians, Greys, Nordics, to sitting Congress people. Of course, all anybody wants to talk about is the fake UFO. So let's get that over with first. What do you make of Lou Elizondo's bogus UFO?
All right, let's just say that I'm not going to get into fake, bogus, whatever. Lou showed a cool photo, and what we learned again for the 80 millionth time. Okay, is it like as we're moving through this, everybody's doing their thing, saying something, showing something. This issue is getting a level of attention like nothing, really, in a sense. Certainly, it is perfect for the internet, and the internet is focused laser-like on everything. When I say that, I mean there is a very substantial segment of social media that are checking everything out, watching everything. So if you put up something, and maybe its providence is maybe a little weak, they're gonna jump on it immediately, and so that has happened. Okay, Lou went through this once before. Does that mean that Lou Elizondo's work and what he's talking about and what we're doing is not absolutely solid? No, not at all. It just means that like you get a hold of a photo, you better know exactly what you're dealing with there. So not a criticism there, but the bigger point is this: is if you are the Congress, Congress, if you are a member of the DOD, if you are like the head of Aero, Sean Kirkpatrick, if you are part of the government and you want to put something up that serves, say, the truth embargo, right? Just kind of playing a little bit with the public and put this up there, slow things down. Understand, it is going to be vivisected, dissected by social media within 48 hours. And if it's nonsense, they're gonna rip you. So that's just a message to the government. Hey, let's get the truth embargo over, right? Let's end it. Let's get in the post-disclosure world, and you won't have to worry about that stuff anymore. All right. And so that is really what's important here, right? As far as Lou and his photo, I was there for the whole thing, I assure you. Very substantial stuff went on that makes the issue of the photo almost zero in significance.
Yeah, no, it's a huge distraction, and if nothing else, it shows the public is galvanized on this. They went instantly to Google Maps, and they tried to bunk it or debunk it, and it came out one way, but at least the public is interested. So okay, so you were there, is that right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what was the most significant thing that you saw that came out of it?
Boy, well, first of all, let's put it in context. This was, we had two formal hearings in front of the House Oversight Subcommittee. All right. They were chaired by Nancy Mace. Prior to that, and subsequent to that, there was six or seven other what you would call hearings, in which a couple of people came up and spoke to like this subcommittee or whatever, including a number of them in the Senate. Had that. And now what we had, and then after the November 13th hearing, the UAP Disclosure Fund, which is growing quickly and accumulating a very substantial coterie of high-level accomplished people as part of its function. I mean, it's just growing every day, and all these people have great backgrounds. The UAP, and it's raising money. UAP Disclosure Fund, which is a 501c4, which means that the money that it raises, while not tax deductible, I believe, is able to be used for political purposes. They sponsored an event on Capitol Hill after that November 13th hearing, right? That Nancy Mace, Representative Mace chaired. Now they've just done another one, only this is even bigger. All right. And so they hold this on the Hill. It's sponsored by the task force. And Anna Paulina Luna is now kind of leading in this issue now. She's kind of having her time. So it's in the Rayburn, one of the Rayburn Senate committee, House committee rooms. Very nice. It's live streamed out, so anybody can go see it if they get the live stream link, and I'm sure it's archived, so you can see this happening in the Capitol. All right. And then, of course, we have what happened. But the point I'm trying to make is for those that don't know the history of this thing, the issue going back to 1947, there's a lot of millennials and Gen Zs, God bless them. They're thinking, oh, yeah, over these decades, things were happening in the Capitol all the time, weren't they? No, they weren't. From 1969, when they crashed this thing out, we didn't get a hearing until 2021. First hearing and since 1968. Since then, we've had 9 or 10, right? Now we've had not only hearings, but we have a task force on declassifying government secrets. That's its name, in which the UAP thing is right there in the top 4, and they're already doing their thing. All right. We have a number of members of Congress, such as Representative Luna, Representative Mace, Representative Burchett, Representative Burleson, and of course, you've got senators such as Schumer, such as Rounds, such as Gillibrand, literally speaking to the issue formally and informally into the media under the a clear context that it's real, that it's true. We are light years from 1969 or 79 or 89 or even after the Cold War ended. This thing is becoming virtually part of the governance of the United States. And so the idea that the validity of this ET presence is somehow going to continue to remain obscure, where certain individuals, particularly in the academic community, have to talk about it as well. We're still trying to figure it out, or we need to find out what this is going on. That's over. The truth embargo is a dead policy walking. The truth embargo managers have lost. They just don't know it yet. The only thing that hasn't happened in the last 7 years, and to some degree the last 2 years, is the president of the United States has not stepped out in the East Room and told the people of this country that we do have non-human tech, we do have non-human bodies. They are most likely from other planets, but if they're from elsewhere as well, no problem. We'll tell you about that too. That is the only thing that hasn't happened. And for those out there that are hoping it never will, forget about it. And so yesterday, which I can get into I'll go back. I'll give you a second to talk. But yesterday, there were more things brought up in the Rayburn office building that should shake the foundations of anybody clinging to this truth embargo.
Yeah, okay. And about Louis Elizondo, for those of people that are still hating on him for the fake video or the photo, whatever it was, we wouldn't be here without him. If he hadn't come out of the UFO closet in 2017, we wouldn't have had the UAP task force. We wouldn't have David Grush. We wouldn't be having these current round of hearings and UFO disclosure, whatever's going on. This current era we're living in wouldn't have been possible if not for Lou. So God bless him, and keep on doing it, Lou. But the next time, maybe show a better photo.
Well, I ain't even get in that zone of trying to make an excuse for him. No, no. Everybody that has come forward has been hated on. Mellon has been hated on. Okay, Eric Davis, Tom DeLonge in the early days absolutely savaged him. All right, even Gary Nolan, everybody has been hated on. The thing we need to understand about the modern world is that the massive technological revolution that gave us the internet and social media and iPhones and Twitter and social media and all of this, which gave the entire world the opportunity to express their opinion daily to an audience, to share the opinions of others, retweets, whatever the hell. This is new, right? And so it's not that people have had opinions about everything going back in time, all the way back to, the early civilizations. No, that's always been the case. But now we have an opportunity of opinion. And so everybody is responding to this. Okay, it's like somebody posts a hate email about somebody. Oh my God. Let me tell you, all these posts are almost worthless. They're almost nothing. That's why I never argue on the internet, ever, in social media, ever. It's
Smart.
almost worthless. It's interesting. It is fun. Okay. All right. But in terms of its consequences, almost zero. And it just runs us around in circles. Now, if I do something, like if I in front of if I'm testifying before Congress, or I'm giving an interview on the Hill, and I say something, and 2 days later there is a substantial editorial in the Washington Times or the Daily Caller, right, or something on Fox News pointing out that, my God, what the hell was that about? Okay, all right. I'll respond to that, and I've made a few mistakes, and I'll respond to that right away and say, look. But this idea that we have to just jump up and down because a bunch of people on Twitter are reposting and savaging us because we made a faux pas is bullshit. And so I don't support it. I don't back it. I know the people in this field. I know who is right. You can have your opinion. I don't care. Right? I will tell you as authentically as I can who is advancing this issue. And one of the absolute leaders is Luis Elizondo. He has made more sacrifice for his country than 5,000 of those haters on Twitter, by and large. You just pick them at random. He has a whole career that goes back 30 years. Okay. And so they can hate and they can do their thing and makes them feel better. But until they have had a 30 or 40-year career serving their country, I am not going to invest much time in their concerns.
Right on, man. Right on. I love it. Okay, so to get
I'm
into the
fired up now,
subs
baby. Let's rock.
no, 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 okay, so to get into some of the more substantial parts of what happened at the UAP
Yes.
Disclosure Fund hearing, for example, Anna Polina Luna said that they were working with David Grush. She didn't name him, but she said as staffer of Eric Burleson
Mhm.
to something about another whistleblower coming forward, and David was assisting them with that. Do you know anything about that? What are your thoughts about that?
First of all, there's so many witnesses. And if she said whistleblower, I'll take her at his word. But there's so many witnesses coming. I can't keep up with it. Right. And that's just the ones that are kind of popping up public. There are witnesses coming forward that are not coming forward publicly. They're interacting with certain individuals, researchers, members of Congress, and staff privately, because by and large, most of the witnesses that we're interested in want to be discreet until things have developed to a point where then they can integrate with the process underway. But some want to come forward public. That's fine. So I can't keep up. But just to set and then paint the picture of yesterday a little more, the public audience was not great because it wasn't a formal hearing and so forth under oath, and it's third party sponsored. But still, the room was filled. Okay, the energy level was high. And so the panel that Luis Elizondo was interacting with as the moderator included, well, there were seven individuals that were part of three separate panel sections. And when we started off, we had, as part of it, and essentially opening it, we had Representative Luna, Representative Burchett, Representative Burleson. Did I leave one out? Just look at that. Let me just think that for a second. I think that was it. Okay. So, as standing in for the oversight committee, which again is, how would you say, sponsoring this or allowing this to happen. So they're there, and Luna had to go because she had something to do, but Burleson and Burchett stayed virtually for the rest of it. And then we had the three panels. Now, there was a range of people. It started off with Avi Loeb, the academic, and the one thing about it that kind of I find interesting and somewhat amusing is that, of course, Dr. Loeb, who has an incredible career in science, I mentioned that he's written 1,000 papers. 1,000 papers. Okay. Talk about publish or perish, right? That's about the equivalent of 20 professors. But in any event, and we know his involvement is really elevated the issue because it shows that Harvard's back in the game. The last time they were in the game was back in the 90s with John Mack. They didn't go well, but they're handling it better now. And he's raising money and so forth. And so he comes from the academic perspective where it's not yet comfortable to be able to say we need to deal with this ET presence. Okay. And so he's addressing all of those issues and what we need to do to search for tech and raise money and what have you. Perfectly okay. But after the good Dr. Loeb gets done, comes the other people, right? And it's not about we need to raise money to go search. We they're here. They're here. We have the tech. We have the bodies, and so it's kind of cool. Now, eventually the academic world, which is a different world, and the activist government world is going to come together. And you're going to have people of Dr. Loeb's stature sitting in front of the cameras, maybe even a Capitol Hill meeting in which they say, uh, yeah, we have non-human tech, we have non-human bodies, and of course, we need to use the full resources of the academic world to understand this, not just the limited resources within the ultra classified world. But that hasn't happened yet. Okay, so
Yeah, I just had to break in. I want to hear Avi Loeb talk about reptilians. I just had to get that in there.
okay, that's going a little far there. Don't need to go there. Okay, but he is a nuts and bolts scientist. All right. And I'm sure he's absolutely very intensely interested in how those things travel and what have you. But he's not ready to go there. But his presence, right, and his gravitas is well serving the disclosure process.
For sure.
Then comes Admiral Gallaudet. Boy, do I love Tim Gallaudet. Oh, man, this guy is so cool, so righteous, so authentic. And so he goes into what is going on and so forth. Of course, he has done he's made a lot of statements about certainly the USOs, the unidentified submerged objects, and he talked about whistleblowers and what have you. And so again, pretty aggressive. And once again, this is live streamed. I think it's going to be archived on the UAP Disclosure Fund website, so you can go watch the whole thing. And so that was the change. Okay, he's a gentleman that was, esteemed career as an admiral, which is not easy to become an admiral. And he's very much talking to the fact that we know there's something here we need to do with that. And then comes Eric Davis. Eric Davis. And Lou really went to great lengths in introducing Eric and all of the stuff he's done because Lou knew that this was going to be interesting. Now, let me I don't want to beat this horse to death, right? But let me just step aside for a second and mention that Eric Davis is one of the people in this field that has had bucket loads of hate dumped on him on the internet. Okay. Really hit hard, worked over because his background is so intensive. He's been involved in so many projects. Each project has its own issues, right? And of course, the thing that really elevated him to Hate City was, of course, the Wilson Davis notes, which for a lot of people was like going too far, right? Particularly Wilson, who was put on a very awkward position because everything he did with respect to certainly the Greer and Mitchell meetings was not supposed to be public, but it ended up being public. And so it became a controversial, denials were made, and then all of the hate was directed at Eric Davis. I watched it unfold. It was intense. It lasted. It can pop up any time. Everybody has an opinion. And those opinions vary from, I don't think that you've gone a little bit too far about what you're saying about this issue, to you are an absolute tool of the deep state and the Illuminati, and you're part of a total project that is going to end life on this planet and replace it with whatever. It runs the gamut. But Eric Davis has been thoroughly, dealt with on the internet. A lot of people, and I know some that I can say this about, have just said, screw this, screw it, right? If this is what I'm going to have to deal with, I'm just going to go back to my very comfortable life, write papers, study, enjoy my family, and not have to put up with it. So in other words, to be an activist and a truth teller in the modern age, referring back to one of the great plays by Heinrich Ibsen, which I read in high school, The Enemy of the People, it's not easy. It is hard, right? Because going from a massive lie to a profound truth is a complex process. And with millions of people watching it, and with a lot of people's lives going to be affected by it, you want to go there, you've got to put on your armor suit, right? Take, Whatever drugs do you need to keep calm because it is going to be difficult. And Eric has had a rough time. So Eric gets going. And he, on camera in the Rayburn office building, he goes into, well, of course, the extraterrestrial presence. Okay, I think you got a little remote viewing in there. The various programs that he has worked in, they studied on, and the whole thing about the extraterrestrial presence was essentially a given as he's going through all of this stuff. He hit all the buttons. Okay, and so if I'm if I'm a truth embargo manager sitting over, I don't know, in some underground, level of the Pentagon, watching this on live stream, you have to be at a place where you can use the internet because you just can't, or wherever they are, and they're watching this, and I just see them with their face palming, they're doing this, they're doing the Jean-Luc Picard thing, they're just face palming. Oh God. Will they not just let us keep having the truth and lie, at least leave us alone? So that was cool. All right. And so we had the first panel was, of course, Dr. Loeb, Admiral Gallaudet, and of course the esteemed and always entertaining Eric Davis. And then we went on to some other individuals. The second panel included Christopher Mellon, and he was in good form. His role in all this is far more profound than most people know because he really kind of stays in the background. He is somebody that has worked in the background his whole life, within the Pentagon and so forth, as well as over on Capitol Hill. You have to be a little discreet if you want to get your things done. But he has been critical to the entire witness process, bringing forward many to speak with the appropriate people in Congress. And so he gave an excellent presentation of where things are and what we might expect. And also about whistle protection, witness protection, and so forth. So that was a very important. In the last presentation, we had Mike Gold, who went much further than he was able to go when he testified before Nancy Mace back on November 13th. And a very, very interesting presentation. And then they answered some questions by a woman that I was not aware of. And her name is Anna. Oh God, forgive me. My memory is not what it should be.
I don't have it either.
Yeah. I can get this. Hang on a second. It's Anna Brady, and I can't get that last name. She has she has an unbelievable career, including Yale, summa cum laude, PhDs, the whole 9 yards. And then she went into the tech area multiple ways, but most assuredly in terms of finance. It's like interesting tech finance. And she was not shy about the fact that they're engaging what she called UAP adjacent tech. And boy, what she was talking about, there's a lot going on in terms of big time finance and venture money starting already to target these advanced techs that are kind of emerging directly or indirectly, including UAP adjacent tech, which just confirmed to me Anna Brady Estevez. Anna Brady Estevez, that they're already targeting this. They're ready. In other words, there is some big time money out there ready to fund warp drive. Boom! The moment it's potentially commercialized. This was impressive to me. She went on, and her principal entity. She's involved in many things. She's been involved in all kinds of things, and in various government panels and entities. But the entity that I think was featured was American Deep Tech, right? American Deep Tech. Do you not like that name? This is a great name, right? American
Deep Tech sounds good. I like it.
Oh yeah. So just in case you know it, she is a leading person in the new age of American Deep Tech, which again is a reminder that in spite of all of our travails and all of the awful things that are happening now around the world that are causing a lot of people to want to move into the forest, top of a mountain, just retire to a quiet life because it's just you can't see the future. Understand that there is a technological transformation as well as a worldview transformation coming on, and it isn't necessarily all about war and weapons. In fact, it's mostly about not war and weapons. It's about being able to engage, fund extraordinary technology that will have extraordinary potential for 8 billion people to live on this planet, have a life, not try to kill each other or destroy the environment. And we have long gone past the point where if we just kind of chill, everything will work out. No, 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 no. We chose to have 8 billion people. And that's the current population. Just since the World War II ended, 12 billion people have turned up, right? Some have gone on, but 12 billion people have kind of come in during that 75 years with hopes and dreams and aspirations and a need for food and water and clothing, right? And so because of that, the impact on the world is what it is. And it's brutal.
Well,
Okay.
that's
Yeah,
the hope of full UFO disclosure, right? Is that with that would come technology that could
exactly.
transform the world.
Exactly. And I've been saying that forever. Danny Shea has been saying that forever. But what I'm trying to say is that in the Rayburn building yesterday, a really accomplished, brilliant, genius woman came forward and talked about the fact that, yeah, in case you weren't paying attention, oh, yeah, big money is lining up and funding this and funding that, including, the technological explosion, which in some degree, almost every tech explosion now, you can kind of connect to the UAP issue, as well as define UAP adjacent tech. We're ready to put billions into it. Now, if that happens, as opposed to the 4 more upgrades of the ICBM nuclear weapon systems. If that happens, then we're going to be use that tech to deal with these issues because we have long past the time when the human race can agree to just give up all these, very impacting things and lead a quiet life in small villages in the country. That's not never going to happen. All right. And so the only way that we're going to be able to function as a society on this planet and not destroy the environment is use our mastery of technology to address the impact on ourselves and on the environment to find a way for it all to work. If we don't develop technology that can do that, this is not going to end well. Trust me. Okay. It just cannot end well. But technology has helped get us into this dilemma. And it's going to take technology to get us out of this, as well as a substantial worldview change. And that was just coming out. I mean, I was just sitting there listening to this genius woman just go on, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I want to sit in every meeting or every little briefing that you give going on, because and she's got all the degrees, right? And she's got all the connections. And it's almost like from the day she entered school, she knew exactly how she was going to interact with this. And I'm wondering how many more Anna Brady Estevez are there out there? But I got a feeling there are many. And so that's just a glimpse of what happened yesterday. It went on for about 4 hours, and I came home utterly exhausted and slept for like 12 hours straight, which almost never happens.
So, do you have any final thoughts on the UAP Disclosure Fund briefing or meeting?
Uh, well, okay, there was a lot of networking going on. The energy was very, very high. There was a lot of our famous stars there. Obviously, James Fox was there, and he was taping everything. And so, and he had his I forget the name of that device. It's called a oh, I have it here. It's one of those kind of things that can record multiple stuff. So he kept going up to the table and moving it from speaker to speaker, right? So that he could get real clear audio of what they were doing, right? The whole time. It's like he's always in production mode. So I'm watching this legend, this filmmaker that has done all this stuff, just going up there, excuse me, just change it and change it. And nobody said a thing because it's James Fox. And by the way, speaking of James Fox, one of my idols. Um, he recently announced Well, I mean, YouTube is a big deal. A lot of people are not realizing it. You know, there's all these controversies about this platform and that platform, et cetera, TikTok and all this other thing. A lot of people keep overlooking YouTube is massive, doesn't have the problems that these social media platforms have. And as I understand it, they have kind of got this now thing what I call move on. Did I say move on? Take that back. Truth. Hang on a second. Let me just chill. Okay. YouTube.
Rumble, Truth Social.
YouTube. I'm still recovering from the last 5 days. YouTube movies. And so YouTube is like a Netflix in a sense now. And they're putting the things up and they're monetizing with ads. And as it turns out, in case for those who hadn't paid attention, the number one in terms of what movie out streaming output for the is Netflix. 200 and some million people, million subscribers. YouTube's number two at 223 million. And so you get a movie up on YouTube now in that genre, you can make a lot of money. And he just announced that Phenomenon, which he went through hell on, lost the opportunity to have a big screen distribution, finally got the rights back, had to give up, I say, by giving up a huge amount of money that was owed him, but he had to do what he had to do because there was all kinds of nonsense going on. It's going to go up on YouTube TV, right?
Nice.
223 million potential viewers. And so I'm feeling James is going to be very chill, very cool. And he's working on getting the program up there. Right.
Nice.
So this is very significant. And by the way, he was in a very good mood. Very, very, very good mood. And I've known him when he was practically total despair. Because he worked years and years on getting a film done, and then something would happen in the whole pandemics, wars, whatever, and suck the potential out. That is less the case now. There are projects underway everywhere. I was the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, which I helped fund with Dan Harari, just held a wonderful get together in Sherman Oaks called the Women of Ufology, the Ladies of Ufology. And we had 5 women make incredible presentations to our group, about 60. And then we dispersed to various parties. I went to one get together afterwards where I immediately became got into a very extensive discussion about a major film project they're doing in this genre I didn't even know about. The networking is growing and it's getting intense. Projects are underway. I'm just sort of like what's the guy? Not Forrest Gump, but it's the Woody Allen version. I forget the name, but that person it just seems to be there when something's happening. So just because I float around, I get access and be able to see what's happening that other people simply cannot see. And what I'm saying is it is bubbling, it's boiling. If this issue was Yellowstone, we're cooked because that baby's going to blow, right? It's going to be that overdue $60,000 massive super volcano explosion. But it's not. It's the truth embargo's end. It's the worldview change that's coming. It is really intense. And I say that as somebody that is actually kind of watching it, doing what I can do, but much more aware of other people better suited, better funded, more connected than I that are jumping into this. So we're close. I just would be very, very surprised if we do not have disclosure this year. And let me be clear, it will come from President Trump. And to do a little self promo here, I just had the honor of being in a U.S. Sun interview and an article. It also got picked up by News Nation. A U.S. Sun is not some cheap tabloid. U.S. Sun is a UK. U.S. Sun is the U.S. version of the Sun, a paper in the UK, the company which is owned by the Times of London. And while they're entertaining and they get interesting stuff, they're not the National Enquirer. A lot of people think it's just a tablet. Nonsense. The paper is read all over the world. The website has millions and millions of hits per month. And so they had an interview, and it was cool because they wanted to know my thoughts on the prospect of the Vatican going towards disclosure and does it have things like that. And while I'm not a a scholar on the Vatican, I could answer those questions, and I did. But in answering those questions, I finished up with what I just said here, and that is this: Donald Trump is going to be the disclosure president. It could happen very soon. And if someone is not comfortable with that, so what?
So
Right?
you actually think Donald Trump, maybe even this year, will come out and say, "My fellow Americans, we are not alone."
He could do it next month. There's so much pointing to that I'm aware of that one could, based upon what I know, and I'm not the only one that knows this, that it could happen next week, next month. It could happen at any time. And I was talking along these lines a while back, and for a number of reasons, but not the least of which I'll bet the majority of your viewers don't know. And this is very significant. 5 days before the inauguration of this president, his son, who has a podcast, had a podcast, January 15th, an hour and a half. I wasn't aware that Donald Jr. had a podcast. Okay, fine. So I got the link, went to it. It turns out he's got a lot of subscribers. Are you shocked at that? It turns out he's pretty good at being a podcaster. No surprises there. Who were his guests that he interviewed for an hour and a half prior to his father's inauguration 5 days later? Louis Elizondo and Ross Coulthard. Now, some people would go, "Oh yeah, sure, no big deal." No. Please, people. Do you think that Don Trump Jr. just decided to have Lou and Ross on for a podcast, didn't mention it to his dad? Or do you think it's not possible that his father actually asked him to do that, to be kind of to sort of read the room, see what the responses are? I believe the comment responses were pretty positive. I don't know which is which. All I know is that is not just an accident. And so at that point, I was doing interviews shortly after that, saying that, look, based on that alone, this could go at any time. However, it's a complicated world. And American politics is as complicated as quantum physics, frankly. And so subsequent to that and the inauguration, we had the 100 days, which included the emergence of Elon Musk as a very, very intense government guy with a temporary appointment and other things. So I'm not surprised that the possibility of the president stepping out in the East Room and ending this embargo once and for all has not quite happened yet. But what's more important than that is this: if you're paying attention, which I do, I chronicle the media. Nobody else chronicles it like I do. That's why I have 16,000 articles chronicled, linked on my website, including 8,000, I think, since 2017. And the media has now exploded again. The articles are pouring forth because of yesterday. And so I'm reading the room. All right. And so and what I'm reading is this: in spite of the extraordinary political and international developments and issues that are literally sucking the air out of every room, the disclosure process just keeps moving along. Just keeps, ching, ching, ching. It's like Forrest Gump, running across the country, just one step at a time, just keeps going. And that's very telling. If what has been happening in the last 100 days is not slowed it, is not stopped it, nothing will stop it. And so, as soon as this thing we're under right now kind of settles down, again, it could happen like that. And from a political consulting point of view, all right, let me put this out. And by the way, the point I'm making is that interview and both the video and the article interview went out there, okay? And that was very pleasing to me because of the statement that Donald Trump is going to do this and making it clear that is great. If you have a problem, I don't care. This issue transcends your politics and your opinions. This is the biggest issue ever. And the president that confirms it, the head of state that confirms it, which could be someone else, will get one of the greatest political legacies of all time, which brings me to my consulting point. I have to believe that there are people around the president. Well, I know for a fact there are people around the president that are following this issue. How can they not? The damn issue is being led by some of the most conservative Republicans in Congress. So yeah, he's following. And they are also aware of the intensity and the controversy of policies that is really creating a lot of heat, a lot of criticism. They're aware of the poll numbers and so forth. And I'm sure there's more than one of them are aware that the president has in his back pocket an ace of spades that he can play anytime he wants. And so if it's just the heat is just getting a little too much and it's kind of making it hard, he just has to play that card. Pull it out. Talk to some people, maybe after there's been another hearing and everything else has happened, whatever, playing on whatever is going on or just on his own intention, which there's been no president that is more than prepared to do whatever the hell he wants to do, regardless of what you think about it, and play that card. And do what is necessary to confirm to the world we have and not advanced, not technologically advanced non-humans here from somewhere, probably out of the stars, as well as crash vehicles. And right away, the focus of the entire world will shift away from everything they are unhappy with about this administration and go right there. And it will completely change the situation for the current administration. Now, that's just raw politics. That is just raw truth. That's the nature of things. And so those that are wondering, could it happen or not? This is a political world. And it's kind of a zero-sum game. So the fact that the disclosure event could be incredibly beneficial to a particular party or a particular president, and the subsequent awareness that the other party and the other presidents of that party, for whatever reason, did not find a way to go there, that's reality. Though I can say, finally, that the post-disclosure world will go international very quickly. All the heads of state will be involved. And it is, as Representative Luna stated in a release leading up to this hearing yesterday, not hearing, but briefing yesterday, which again, she led. She made probably one of the most important statements that any politician on this issue has ever stated, because she stated it clearly. She said the UAP issue is the most nonpartisan investigation in the history of the United States. And a lot of people would have read that and not realized how important it is. And this has been reiterated in a number of other statements from here and there and what have you. And why is that important? Because it lets us know that these people, some of which we hate, are actually pretty smart. That a lot of the things they say or do is in service to the very difficult politics and doesn't necessarily represent the full status of their acumen and their knowledge. There's people, they understand that the situation that they are in is difficult, if not impossible. It is brutal. It is not fun, right? And Nancy Mace, Representative Mace, in a meeting, I think she told me, if I remember correctly, she had to spend $20 million to win her seat. This is not easy. But they literally understand, many of them, that the disclosure of the ET presence and the process, the disclosure process, which has clearly been nonpartisan and stated as such, may be the path out of darkness. It may be the path out of the woods where we've been all wandering around, so we can get to working positive government again. That's not a trivial thing. And so whatever blessings come from knowing the truth about this reality, maybe even getting the tech, the greatest blessing may be the way forward to working government and out of the world of hyperpartisanship. these are things that I pay attention to. I don't expect most people to do that.
Yeah, okay. About Donald Trump coming out with it, he's kind of hard to read on the UFO topic because, on the one hand, like the day after he came into the office, he debunked the mystery drones as FAA authorized craft, which, is probably not the case. But at the same time, we've heard from the declassification task force that the impetus for that was UFOs, and they were coordinating with him on the creation of that task force. And obviously they waited for him to come in before they formed it, which seems very encouraging that he is for transparency and might be the disclosure president, or be the president during the disclosure process. Part of me really wants it to be Congress that does it, a bipartisan effort doing this, coming out with this, because if Trump comes out with it, it's going to be so hyper politicized.
No, 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 no. Let me help you there.
Okay, okay.
First of all, disclosure cannot come from the Congress. Otherwise, we would already have disclosure. You know how many members of Congress have said there's ETs here, or at least there's non-human advanced technology here? Quite a number. Okay. The hearings, they've done it. They put Grushin under oath, and he said it right out there, and they didn't contradict him. No, no, no. Disclosure can only come from the head of state, as I define it. That's that definition. It's my definition, folks. So consequently, I have to be right on this. Capital D disclosure, not small d, but capital D disclosure is the event. It is the confirmation event that must come from a head of state. Because if you expect the UAP disclosure acts to function and do what they're supposed to do, if you expect the fundamental resistance to the post-disclosure world to come down, if you expect laws and other things to happen, they're not going to happen until the confirmation comes from the president. Period. There's a lot of things that don't happen in our society until they have been cleared by the White House. I'm sorry, it's the way the world works, right? And so consequently, disclosure can only come from the president. Now, in terms of the hyper-partisan thing, as I'm saying, if you listen to the president's statements, he doesn't partisanize it. And members of his own party have made it clear it is not a partisan issue. This is good. But President Trump, of course, is dealing with lots and lots of stuff. And to be honest, he has a lot of interest, but I don't necessarily think disclosure is high on his list. It doesn't have to be, right? He has other things that I think are higher on his list. Doesn't mean it's not on his list. And so he's not going to be Tim Burchett, right? But is he aware? Is he paying attention? Is he being informed? Absolutely. And that is the point that I am making. And that's why that article in the U.S. Sun is important. What I was saying there when I made that statement at the end, which they wrote it up, and also they kept it in the interview, is that current president may want to make the disclosure of the ET presence number one on his list. And that's the best I can do, right? I don't get any calls to come on in, do a little counseling, sit down in a meeting, whether talk to some of the guys. No, I'm not in that list, but I do lots of podcasts and interviews. And so that's how I talk to power. Let's put it out there. You never know. They might watch it. But you see the point that I'm making. It could easily jump to number one on his list tomorrow. I know it's in play. All right. I know it is in play. And it may be a way to cool things down, change the subject, but there's no question that the head of state that makes that confirmation goes down in history. And it is worth noting that aside from everything else, there is nothing really preventing the leader of China, Xi Jinping, or the leader of Russia, Vladimir Putin, from doing it tomorrow, in which case they get the glory. They get the legacy. I don't care. Long term, it doesn't matter. But that is the fact.
All right, the gauntlet has been thrown down.
Yeah, and maybe the three of them get together in a little private meeting that nobody knows about and agree to come forward the same day. That's fine. It would be pretty cool, though it would rattle a lot of people's cages. I mean, oh man. Okay, UK would be going, hello, what about us? But not likely. Here's why it's not likely, because trying to get three major heads of state together, so that they could kind of come up with how we're going to jointly confirm the ET presence, it'll leak and it'll get out before they ever get to that point, and thus it turns into chaos. So ultimately, one is going to go first. The rest will follow. So whoever is the first head of state to confirm what hundreds of millions of people around the world, if not a couple of billion, know already, they're not going to be the king of the post-disclosure world or the leader of the post-disclosure world, because it will become a global issue very quickly. And and with governments holding meetings and diplomacy and talking and the UN getting involved and everything else. And so it will be a global and still nonpartisan matter. And all of the heads of state will have their role. But that being the case, whoever goes first, bingo, they're going to get, statues, big statues made of them parked here or there with the inscription and all the good stuff. And one of those rope things around, so you can't really get real close. You just sit there and look at them. Just saying, something.
Uh, okay. All right. So going forward in Congress, we've got, a UFO hearing to look forward to. And apparently we have a skiff that they're trying to get David Grush into. Now, we've been told previously that they have had material provided to them from David Grush and his skiff, but not himself. So what can they get out of David personally that they can't get out of whatever material they provided? Do you have any
Well, if
insight
I
into
knew the
that?
answer to that, then we wouldn't have to have the skiff. Right? Let's just say, now the skiff is kind of a fun. A lot of people don't understand a skiff. Look, all a skiff is a soundproof, you know, radiation, whatever the hell, a facility where somebody can't pick up what you're saying from a satellite, or what, or just kind of sit next to it and put their ear against the wall. That's all it is. Okay, it's not like because you're in, but because it's absolutely secure from the rest of the world, people who have the classified level to hear what somebody else has the classified level to say can do it. So if two people with the classified levels necessary to say and hear something are having lunch at the Palm in Georgetown, they can't talk about that. Even if they're in a back booth, way in the back, there's nobody there. They think, let's talk. No, you can't do it. So the skiff makes it possible for you to do and say something that you have the right under the classification schema to do. And that's why they have to get into it. Now, it's basically the cone of silence from Smart. What was the name of that show? Get Smart. That was a great show, by the way. And it was like, it shows how old I am, right? Get Smart. It has the cone of silence. And
I love the opening for that show. It has the best opening.
One of the best openings. The cone of silence is basically a takeoff on the skiff. And so that's what it's about. And getting people into it is interesting. Why? Because you just don't, call somebody up and say, let's do a skiff tomorrow, right? Everybody associated with the individual, their work, their background, everything else, and the bosses or former, they have to sort of know about this. And so getting somebody in a skiff is tricky because there may be significant people of substance and high rank within our military intelligence community that don't want them to go in there, because if they go in there, then they can say stuff that they would prefer they didn't say. And so you're going to have resistance. And by and large, this is not unusual. There have been many skiffs or many attempts to get skiffs about other issues that the public could give a damn about, where they couldn't get them because the person wasn't cleared to do it. But this issue, of course, is being watched worldwide by everybody, even people living in the deeper Amazon, frankly. And so the matter of who goes into a skiff is a non-trivial matter. And clearly Grush, when he dropped that nuclear bomb, in the House subcommittee hearing on July the 26th of 2023, a date that will go down in infamy, he created some serious concerns. And so and he continued to get death threats and a lot of other things. So, and he's an American hero. If he doesn't get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, I'm going to be very upset, and I'm going to have to say so. The point is that he has been at the focus of this, and so getting him in to a skiff is a big deal because if he gets in there, there are a lot of people in the Department of Defense and elsewhere in our fine military intelligence establishment community that know what he's going to say. And they know that that's going to raise the temperature on the pot quite a bit. If you may remember from the November 13th here, not the November 13th, the original here, on July 26, 23, Grush stated under oath that we have craft that are not human made. They're made by non-human advanced technology, and we have the technologically advanced non-humans that were attendant to that craft, which was the major thing that he said. That was the boom. And he was then asked, do you happen to know the locations of that, where they are? And he made, I think, the mistake, it was a mistake, I believe, of saying yes. I don't think he was supposed to say that. I think he was supposed to say, I cannot discuss that in the public setting. But he snapped off a yes. And of course, they immediately came back. I think the yes went to Mace, but I think it was Garcia, the Democrat, that followed up. I may be slightly wrong, but it's not a big deal. It was Garcia, I believe, that followed up and said, well, if you happen to know the locations of where the craft and the bodies are, could you tell us? And then he said, no, I cannot discuss that in a public setting, only in a skiff, or it's implied only in a skiff. Now, Grush could have deliberately said yes, knowing that that's not as bad as actually saying, oh, yeah, I do, and here they are, right? 25th and 4th Street and whatever that. No, so he might have done it deliberately, knowing what that would mean. And so here is where things are after that hearing, July 26th, which I can't believe is approaching 2 years, is that the whole lot of people, regular old people, retired military, spooks, spies, and everything else, are well aware that the presence of bodies and technology of non-human origin has been announced to the world under oath. That the fact that somebody knows the locations has been announced to the world under oath. And that person has stated he can only talk about it in the proper setting, which is a skiff, which means that if they get him into a skiff, he is going to tell them the locations of the craft and the bodies. And who is he going to be talking to? Well, at least, very possibly, it could be Burchett, Luna, and Mace. Who knows? Everybody that technically has the clearance is going to be in that skiff, in which case the cat's completely out of the bag. The cows are out of the barn. It's all over the place.
So what can they do with that information? Can they subpoena a UFO if they know where it is? Can they how can they subpoena the people that have the UFO to produce the technology?
Yeah.
What can they do if they do get that location?
If they have, of course, and by the way, one of the reasons we had another hearing. One of the reasons they set up the task force is, I think, to kind of get to the point where they were going to release. I say release. They were going to allow Grush in that skiff. He's not the only one that they'd like to do a skiff on. So they've been working for 2 years to get to the point where they could get it, because they didn't get it right away, and they went public with that. In other words, they wanted Grush in a skiff, they didn't get it, so they complained about it. Right? The DoD won't let us have a skiff. You see the problem here? Running the truth embargo has just become awful, right? It's like everything you do immediately gets exposed, right? So you're getting, you can't be on social media, or nobody can know if you're on social media that you're dealing with these programs. They'll drive you crazy. That's why they need to end the truth embargo, so they can get back to a nice, comfortable life. And so this has been percolating for 2 years. And so if any of those members of that committee get told formally in that skiff where those locations are, now they technically know that they can now proceed more aggressively without getting into trouble. So one thing you don't want to do is go ballistic and go, a subpoena, go whatever to hell on something that turns out, no, it's a MacGuffin. It's not even there. But if you know there's a there, now the subpoenas go out or the requests go out. Now the letters go out, like they're doing with the JFK documents, a demand letter, things like that. And so Grush in a skiff is, I can't think of a really cool way to end that, but Grush in a skiff is like a trigger that at another level from 23. And given that Rounds has already indicated they're going to reintroduce the whole UAP Disclosure Act in full again, it's like the pot is now boiling at that point. And if I am the White House, I mean, at some point, you want to jump in there. I mean, if I'm the White House, I'm the president. I want a platform to stand on, meaning that I can come out and say this, and everybody's going, "Oh yeah, of course, that makes total sense. You're responding to what's going on." I don't want to be seen as being dragged into this, right? As the members of Congress and committees and Rushes and Grushes and all the other stuff, just like dragging the president into the East Room and then saying, "Okay, Mr. President, tell them the truth." You don't want that. So he needs to be early, not late. And Grush in a skiff really sets the timer on the clock, right? Meaning that cake's coming out. It's baked. That cake's coming out of the oven pretty soon. So again, this is my wonderful way of metaphorically trying to explain to the world why I think it's very possible that we may get disclosure from President Trump within the next month or two.
Oh, I love that. That's a great scenario, Steve. So, the task force and Grush could compel Trump to come forward with this. I think that's a beautiful.
Indirectly,
in- in-
indirectly, indirectly.
I love it. That's actually a very plausible scenario. All right. So one more question. I'm trying to keep this to an hour. So if you could, I don't know how you can
I'll
address
go as
this
long
in.
as you want. My job is to talk, my friend. So let's talk.
Okay. Okay. Well, I've got to know your thoughts on Jake Barber, Skywatcher, and what they are doing. They are coming forward with videos of jellyfish. I call it the sky squid. They've got the blob. They've got, these very strange things that they are experiencing and documenting. And ultimately, they're trying to get peer reviewed. Uh, what do you make of all of that?
It's not hard to respond to that. There are a lot of witnesses coming forward. All right. Lots of them. There's going to be more. And my job is not to, I don't bet. My job is not to give opinions about, oh yeah, that's definitely what up. No, 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 no. My job is to move toward disclosure. And I don't need to be able to support 43 witnesses to get the disclosure. There's just a few key people that are taking us there. David Grush is certainly one of them. Luis Elizondo is one of them. Christopher Mellon is one of them. But given the nature of things, that as these witnesses come forward, they're all going to get plenty of attention. And unless they can slam dunk a particular event or piece of evidence, I mean, really slam dunk it, then it's going to be in play. It's going to be like a ping pong match, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That's fine. I like ping pong. But my job is not to go there. And so when I'm talking to you or the public, I am focusing on the witnesses, the individuals in Congress that are going to end the truth embargo, and all of the rest follows. And once we get disclosure, once we're in the post-disclosure era, it will be much easier to address anybody that turns up. Okay? People are going to turn up. They're going to have this, they're going to have that, because you're going to have a whole lot of stuff that's declassified because the issue is now understood. And if there's a controversy, it'll get resolved. Okay? But it won't matter if we resolve it or don't resolve it. Once we have disclosure, we have disclosure. And so if a witness comes up with an extraordinary story, and the person has some background, and people are saying, oh man, I don't know if that's true or that's not true, but let's get on that. Let's find out. Frankly, it doesn't matter, because everything else is now moving forward. One of the keys to successful activism is focus. You must stay focused on the prize. You must stay within certain guardrails. Not because everything outside the guardrail is necessarily not useful or whatever, but because you can't go wandering in all directions and get to the goal. You got to stay on the path. And so that's one of the roles of the activist, and that's what I do. Uh, I invite people to enjoy the back and forth in play, enjoy some of the things that are being brought forward, uh, in, be convinced, not convinced, like, not like, maybe even do an investigation if you want to. But don't view these other things as that is particularly critical to finally getting the truth embargo ended. We had enough proof to end the truth embargo 50 years ago, maybe even 60 years ago. Well, actually, we did. I mean, they could Truman could have simply called a press conference and brought out some really fine photos of the entire crash in Roswell, including the bodies. Actually, it wasn't Roswell; it's another name for it, but it's associated with Roswell. But the area that it crashed is not named Roswell, and that would have been it. So we've had the proof 70 years. It's not about getting more proof. It's about getting a confirmation of what we already have proven to the world, which we have to do because the government made a decision for reasons they felt were quite legitimate. It may have been, but they've hung on too long that the confirmation of that proof is not in the national security interests of the United States and by extension, the United States' allies. Russia and China had their own reasons. So it's a rather complex situation. It's not like, learning some new science, like discovering relativity or a new moon of Jupiter. No, 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 no. This is bigger than anything. The reality of the ET presence is the most profound piece of information the human race has ever dealt with. Though I do believe the human race sort of knew there was something going on. They had ETs, I think, cruising around back in the thousands of years ago, but they didn't know how profound it was. And basically, they're just another god. There's gods everywhere, another god who gives a damn. This is not that. This is the confirmation at a time where we are already spacefaring, technological advance, everything else, and we may actually be able to sit down at the table. So this is bigger than anything. And thus it has a gravitational force to it that is extremely strong. And so dealing with it as a truth and getting it out, whoa. Even some of the toughest scientific emergences don't compare with this. I mean, there have been some scientific breakthroughs that were really tough to get out. And in fact, some people had to die first. I get it. It wasn't easy. This is way past that. This is monumental, which is why the government invested an unbelievable amount of resources, effort, and time in keeping this truth under wraps for now 78 years. During the most technologically advanced period in human history, and the most advanced period of a person-to-person global communication in history, right? And they worked hard to keep the truth out despite that. That's how big it is. And so it's necessary to keep reminding ourselves how profound and big this is as we try to assess why this didn't happen or that didn't happen and so forth. All I can say is that what's happening now is unprecedented. It is enough to end this. And as it happens, and this is a very, very straightforward statement, of the 14 presidents that have served in the White House, 14 different humans that have served in the White House as president since 1947, the current president, unlike any of the other 13, is far more capable of simply doing this because he wants to and he doesn't give a damn who in the Pentagon doesn't want him to. In other words, he is the most independent operating president of the modern era. And that may prove to be what it took to get this done and move to the post-disclosure world. That's the way it is. And I'm letting people know that because it is part of the reality. And also I'm letting the people in the White House know, should they, watch the internet much and watch videos, that, yeah, that's the situation. So it's up to you. Play that card or continue to hold on and perhaps wait and watch another head of state play that card.
That's wonderful, Steve. Okay, I have so many more questions for you, but there's actually a big storm here. I have to cut it off.
Okay,
Um,
quick promos. Can I do quick promos then?
no, you are going to be in contact in the desert. Is that
Right.
correct?
Contact in the Desert
Yeah,
coming
I
up on the
wasn't going to
29th.
forget. Yeah,
Okay.
in fact, you're the moderator of a panel. Am I
I'm
remembering that
moderating
correctly?
two very significant panels, the disclosure panel and the UFOs and nukes panel. I'm also doing a workshop and a lecture, but I think, but look, this is going to be a major conference. We have got some amazing speakers and we've got some amazing topics, not the least of which is the emergency of research proving telepathy. Going to be getting into that deeply with Diane Hennessy, Powell, and so forth. So if you can't make it, I know, because the circumstances out there now are tough. Okay. I mean, if you were a nice government worker thinking about going to the contact in the desert, you're out of a job. And so things are tough. So if you cannot make it to Indian Wells, they're going to live stream most of it. I mean, literally, you can sign up for live stream, cost a lot less, watch almost everything as far as I can tell. So please do that. You want to be involved here. So that's happening. Meanwhile, I'm going to be doing an event in the Dales in Oregon with George Noory coming up on the 24th of May this month. Going to be up there with God's people. I think that's going to be, I think that's probably being promoted on Coast to Coast AM. There is what else? Well, there's two major events coming up toward the end of the year, very, very big. And one is October and one is in December. Eventually going to be learning about these. One is all about UAP. The other has a major UAP component, and these are major events. You will be learning about those soon. And as I've told the sponsors of these events, there's a good chance they will be in the post-disclosure era, which just means that a lot more champagne and caviar will be served. So that's coming. Paradigm Research Group is desperately wanting to schedule the 7th X conference. I have dates selected. I know how to run it. Now I've done it before. It would be about a weekend event at the National Press Club, 2 blocks from the White House. But I have got to raise about $25,000 to lock that down. I cannot lock the dates without that. This way it is, which is one of the reasons why I did convert to 501c3 about 7 months ago. So any donations are tax deductible. I need to get those funds as soon as possible. Anybody out there that got into crypto early, I didn't understand it. So I can lock those dates down sooner than later and start promoting the X conference. So that's of course in the works. And the New Paradigm Institute continues to move forward. Danny Sheehan is all over this issue. He's in town, more in town here than he is back in California. Obviously, the UAP Disclosure Fund is asserting itself big time. And Soul Foundation, obviously, is pulling together an extraordinary scientific think tank. All of these need your support. PRG is a small boat. I don't need a massive amount of support, 25,000, and I'm going, yay. These other entities are looking to raise a couple million, and they will eventually, because there are a lot of people out there that donate huge sums of money to causes. Righteous people, it's very good, but not to this cause because the stigma. But the stigma is virtually gone. And so those who have the funds to support extraordinary things, I'm not saying the other things aren't extraordinary. I'm simply saying that, boy, you put some millions into this, and they will be singing your praises well into the 20th century, 21st century. Got to get my centuries right. 21st century. So I'm thinking that dam is going to break at some point. Even Melinda Gates might just call up and go, I'm impressed with what you guys are doing. And here's a bill, right? Spread it across 7 entities. I want to be part of the post-disclosure world. I'm sorry to pick on her. I'm just saying that America does an unbelievable amount of philanthropic funding. A lot of people forget that. The rich are getting kind of a bad rep right now. I get it, but the amount of philanthropic funding from people of wealth in this country is extraordinary. This issue has always been outside that, and that's the way the government wanted it. That's why the stigma and the ridicule and so forth were constantly serviced. I understand that. But now we're a thing. We're the happening thing. And we're totally righteous. And maybe it's time to support what we're doing so that the public will participate in full in the post-disclosure world and not have it taken over by, high-powered individual entities that will then shape that world to their liking as opposed to what the public would want. Again, I'm just saying, putting it out there. In terms of other promos, well, paradigmresearchgroup.org website is where you can subscribe to my news, my updates up in the upper left corner or down below. Find the print media archive with 17,000 linked articles, triage from 30,000 on this subject, mainstream journalism. You could become an expert right there. All right. And also where I have a very special section called the In Memoriam page, where I honor with photo and bio those that have passed, that have fought the good fight, but didn't make it to disclosure. I've got about 140. You may want to check out In Memoriam. And the reason I mention that is a wonderful member of our community, one of the most beloved, a good friend of mine who I've known for some time, Earl Gray Anderson, passed away on April 27th after a sudden illness came on. And
I'm
so
so
we
sorry.
lost a great man, and he is the latest addition to the In Memoriam section. For those that didn't know that, get in touch with his wife or however you can get in touch with them and let them know, or just post something, right? And what have you. So that's the promos for today, my friend. I will
That's
let you
great.
go.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today, man. That was a great talk. I love everything you said. It was fantastic, and I can't wait for you to come on again and be
Not
righteous. And what was the other word? Righteous and happening.
and authentic. Look, I live to podcast, my friend. I can't be a host because I can't sit still long enough or be consistent enough. But I live to guest, and so anytime, give me a call.